Hello guys, we are back in new fanfic, and if enjoying this then please share and like part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. The wind ruffled those wild blonde locks that makes Naruto stand out among the rest of the population. Naruto was currently smiling at his longtime friends who were on the verge of tears. A memory of the last time he saw them appeared in Naruto's mind. Flashback. His friends were all gathered around a makeshift camp. The war was over and only one thing remained to be done: Sasuke. They were currently discussing about what to do with Sasuke. Kiba said that Naruto shouldn't shoulder the entire burden and that they need to finish off Sasuke instead of Naruto. Most of them agreed while Sakura remained silent, lost in her own doubts. Naruto wasn't invited to this secret meeting because they knew he would object to their plan. Unfortunately for them, he already knew what they were planning. He watched them from afar and smiled at their determination, but he knew this was one fight they could never win. Sasuke was his responsibility and his alone. He jumped down from the tree and made a clone. Don't let them pass was the clone's only mission. With one last look towards his friends, he took off into the forest and towards his fate. Quote 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 quote. It's been a while, huh? Sadness present in his voice. Sakura took a tentative step forwards, tears streaming down her face. Naruto, is that really you? Sobbed Sakura. Alive and kicking, chuckled Naruto, but it was a blank laugh, without the happiness that is usually present in it. Sakura wanted to rush towards him and hug him, but Kakashi put a hand on her shoulder, stopping her for the moment. Sakura looked at him, wondering why he stopped her, but Kakashi wasn't paying attention to her. Instead he was focused on Naruto and him alone. It's been a while, Kaka-sensei. It seems time was fair to you. You haven't aged at all. Smiled Naruto, genuinely happy to see his silver mentor. It truly has been a while, huh Naruto? You've grown. I smiled Kakashi, happiness and pride in his voice. Naruto chuckled and looked himself over. I guess I did, huh? I'm no longer the shortest. Kiba decided to end this little charade. Buddy, we finally found you. Come on, let's go home. The rest of the group nodded and smiled at their friend. Somethin told Shikamaru this won't be as easy as they all thought. The look in Naruto's eyes didn't alleviate Shikamaru's doubts. Naruto adopted a serious look on his face when he looked at Kiba, and his friends were surprised to see that such a look was directed towards them. I'm afraid that won't happen. Shock was present among the rookies and company. Kakashi, Neji, Shino, Shikamaru somehow expected such an answer. They had a feeling something changed with Naruto. What are you talking about, man? We came here to bring you home. We've been searching for you for the past 3 years. Screamed Kiba. Shikamaru walked past him. Kiba, look him in the eyes. Kiba was confused as to what Shikamaru was trying to tell him, but when he actually focused onto Naruto's eyes, he didn't saw the Naruto from the past, the Naruto they all knew, but someone else. Shikamaru stopped beside Kakashi and eyed Naruto while Naruto did the same. A small smile etched itself on Naruto's face. Hello, Shika. Glad to see you off the couch. Shikamaru grinned. As troublesome as this is, I thought it would be wise to come along. He sent a discreet glance to Temari, which Naruto picked up on. He chuckled. Like father like son, I guess. Shikamaru merely smiled at the remark. Most of the occupants were baffled as to what they were talking about, but some knew exactly what was discussed. Sakura meanwhile was still sobbing. Naruto. Seeing Sakura cry, Naruto decided to get serious. He sighed and started, as much as I'm happy to see you again, I'm afraid you traveled a long way for nothing. What do you mean? We came for you, Naruto. Let us return home, yelled Ino, Naruto's behavior confusing her greatly and saddening her. Like Sakura, she too was crying freely. Sadness flashed through Naruto's eyes, but it disappeared as quickly as it appeared. He turned away from the crying Ino, not wanting to look her in the eyes. He didn't want to see her cry because of his mistakes. He walked towards his home, turning his back to his friends. He turned to the right and saw a baffled Yugao and Kurenai, who was looking towards her feet, her body shaking a bit. Naruto sighed internally. He never meant to cause so much grief to them. He hated himself right now. When he was close to his house of a few months he spoke, I am home, Ino. This is my home now. I can't return to Konoha. Why? Screamed Ino in protest, his words breaking her heart and the hearts of his friends. Naruto shook his head, you wouldn't understand. None of you here could understand. It's because of Sasuke, isn't it? Said Kakashi. Naruto tensed for a moment, but that's all Kakashi needed to know the truth, it is about him. Naruto, you can't blame yourself for the mistakes he did. He chose the path of hatred and there was nothing you could have done about it. Naruto raised his head to the sky and Kakashi could swore he saw him smiling. There was a lot I could have done for him but I was too stupid to notice it. I could have stopped everything if I only noticed it sooner. Said Naruto. Noticed what? Naruto asked Kakashi. Naruto shook his head and sighed, it doesn't matter. We are getting off topic here. Talking won't make me come back to Konoha, nothing can now. I suggest you leave and forget about me, forget I ever existed. That will be for the best for everybody. Disbelief spread through the ranks of Konoha ninjas. Not even the worst pessimist among them expected such words from Naruto. Kakashi looked down and guilt was evident in his eyes. If he killed Sasuke when he had the chance, none of this would be happening. It looks like he can't do a single thing right after all. How could we forget about you, you idiot? You are our friend, you are our hero. You are the glue that holds this group together, you baka. Can't you see that? Without you, we are empty. Konoha is nothing without you. Get a hold of yourself, man. Shouted Kiba in anger. Listen to your friends, Naruto. Listen to their words, listen to what they are trying to say. You are running away but you can't keep on running. You have amazing friends who want to help you if you only let them. Interjected Yugao, walking slowly towards him. She stopped right in front of him and gently put a hand on his shoulder and smiled, you do not have to walk alone on your road. Reach out and grab their hands, Naruto. Naruto was waging war against himself. Images of his smiling friends invaded his mind and happiness flooded his system, but then Sasuke appeared and along with him came the feeling of betrayal and failure. The happiness disappeared and guilt reappeared. He moved away from Yugao, that is not an option, Yugao. Yugao sighed in disappointment. It looks like talking to him is a lost cause right now. Why, Naruto, why go so far for someone like Sasuke? He is a traitor, he tried to kill us all. Don't you see? We no longer care about him, we care about you. Don't let him ruin what we have. Yelled once again Kiba, others agreeing with him. Traitor? Naruto never thought of Sasuke as a traitor. Sasuke was lost in his pain and hatred. What would you do if you lost everything and had absolutely nothing? No family, no love, no comfort, nothing. It was his job to bring him back and he failed. Even if he was a traitor, he was still my friend, my brother and I, he couldn't finish the sentence, the memory of that day clawing at his mind. Kakashi continued, you what, Naruto? Killed him? Is that what this is all about? Guilt. He nailed it when he saw Naruto flinch at the word, kill. Naruto, I saw what he became. You couldn't save him, no one could. You did what you had to Naruto. You shouldn't feel guilty for trying to save your friend. Said Kakashi, trying to get through to Naruto. Naruto looked down, his eyes closed, his hands balled into a fist. His body suffered from the occasional spasm, the memory that was clawing itself into Naruto's mind now succeeded. Goodbye, my brother, smiled Sasuke, blood coming out of his mouth. He closed his eyes and let death take him. Naruto's eyes opened and his chakra spiked to unfathomable levels, shocking everyone around him. He was my brother. I killed my brother. How can you say it's okay? I watched him die in my hands. I put my fist through his heart. The anger subsiding and being replaced with light sobbing and tears, the chakra also returning back to normal, I watched him smile at me while I shoved my hand through his heart. The rookie's heart broke seeing him in so much pain. I killed my brother, The one who acknowledged me as his equal and yet I couldn't even save him. I failed my brother, cried Naruto. Sakura took a step forwards and Naruto flinched and took a step backwards. Get away. In his anger and sorrow he unleashed a wave of chakra which pushed the Konoha ninjas back a bit. Naruto, calm down, said Neji, speaking for the first time. To be frank, there was a bit of fear in his eyes after he witnessed Naruto's chakra spike. Naruto was breathing heavily and unshed tears were pooling in his eyes. He took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. Getting angry at them won't solve anything. It looks like you won't return to Konoha. Fine, then I will leave, announced Naruto. The Konoha ninjas all tensed, all ready to move and intercept his escape. I'm sorry Naruto. Tsunade told me to bring you back, whatever means necessary, said Kakashi, revealing his Sharingan eye. Then that will be one mission where you fail, Kaka-sensei, said Naruto, pumping chakra to his feet to teleport out of there and escape. Kakashi, Neji saw this and did the same, but they won't make it in time. Yugao also noticed Naruto tense, that's why she sprung her plan. Holding up the ram seal, she yelled, bind. Naruto tensed and his eyes widened. Strange marking appeared on his body, holding him in place and cutting him off from his chakra. With a lot of effort he turned towards Yugao. When did you? The memory of her touching his shoulder appeared in his mind and he couldn't help but smile at her ingenuity. No wonder she's an Anbu captain, always thinking 10 steps ahead. Yugao yelled, Kakashi now. By the time Yugao barked out her order, Kakashi was already in motion, going through several hand seals, but he was interrupted by a loud roar that was coming from Naruto. Kakashi's Sharingan eye widened in shock and disbelief. What he saw through his eye made him sweat. An incredible amount of chakra was gathering inside of Naruto and it looked like shit, cursed Kakashi. Everyone, get down now, yelled Kakashi. Without a single moment of hesitation, everyone dropped down to the ground. Yugao, seeing that Kurenai was still out of it, sprung into action and forcefully tackled her to the ground, ignoring the pain that shook her body. It's good that they did listen to Kakashi, because a moment later, all the chakra that was building up inside of Naruto exploded outwards, releasing Naruto from his binding. A large shockwave shook the clearing and the Konoha ninjas were barely holding on. The trees around them weren't so lucky. By the time the shockwave subsided, the clearing expanded by 50 meters. The dust receded and there stood Naruto, unharmed and not even winded by that outburst of chakra. Nice trick, Yugao, but I've seen it before. You'll have to do much better than that, grinned Naruto. Yugao scoffed and turned towards Kurenai. Kurenai, get a hold of yourself. This is not the time for wallowing in your grief. I need you to fight. Kurenai, hearing her words, regained some fire into her eyes and nodded with a bit more determination. They both stood up and turned towards Naruto. I never expected that to hold you for long, Naruto. If it did, I would be very disappointed, said Yugao. Naruto chuckled, you'll see I'm full of surprises. Shikamaru spoke, Naruto, don't do this. Let us help you. I'm sorry Shikamaru. I need to go through this alone. I don't want to fight you guys. I don't want to hurt you, so please leave, said Naruto seriously. I failed once, Naruto. I won't fail again. I'll bring you back to Konoha, said Kakashi seriously, his Sharingan eye narrowing. I would like to see you all try. Yugao and Kurenai are still injured, so they are out of the fight. And only 3, maybe 4 of you can keep up with me with my initial speed. How do you expect to beat me? He was right and Kakashi knew it, that's why he formed a plan in his head. Guy, Lee, I need you to cover our backs. You two are perhaps the only ones that can keep up with his speed, so I need you two to cover our blind spots. We'll do the rest. Shikamaru, you know what to do, ordered Kakashi. Shikamaru scoffed and sighed troublesome, but did what he was asked to do. Plans were starting to form in his head and he was ready to relay them. Both Guy and Lee readied themselves for the run of their lives. They couldn't help but grin with excitement. This is going to be awesome. Ino went to stand beside Shikamaru in order to telepathically issue Shikamaru's plan. This way Naruto won't know what hit him. Yugao and Kurenai moved to the back of the group, intent on staying out of the fight since their injuries didn't allow it. Naruto, seeing that they are getting serious, dropped into the stance his late master taught him. Seeing that they will pursue him to the end of the earth, he will knock them unconscious and then make his escape. And then it stared. The battle to bring back their friend has begun. A hail of different weapons rained down upon Naruto courtesy from the weapon mistress, 1010. Naruto smirked. Easy, thought Naruto while drawing his kunai to deflect them all. There were no explosive tags among them, so he was safe. His eyes widened a bit when he saw Tamari jump into the air behind the projectiles and swing her fan, unleashing a wave of wind towards the weapons, increasing their speed and surprising Naruto. Naruto cursed and jumped out of the way of the incoming projectiles, but a string of shadow was already making its way towards Naruto, waiting for him to land so that it could trap him. Naruto formed a clone midair and used him as a jumping point. Naruto landed a few yards away from the shadow, which was currently in hot pursuit after him. Naruto smirked and disappeared in a burst of speed, reappearing in front of the shocked Shikamaru and aiming a fist to his gut. He had to abort his plan when Lee came in with a roundhouse kick to his face. Naruto raised his arm to block it but was surprised at the power behind it. It seems he wasn't the only one who continued to train hard. Guy came from the opposite side aiming a low kick to his sternum. Seeing that he couldn't block it, he disappeared once again and appeared a little bit away from the group of ninjas. Impressive. Great teamwork. It looks like this is going to be harder than I thought. His speech was interrupted by the activation of a technique. Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu. Naruto turned towards Kakashi, who just finished spewing out a large ball of fire. What he didn't expect is Tamari once again unleashing her wind, which made the already powerful technique even stronger. The now enormous ball of fire traveled towards Naruto at amazing speed and Naruto scoffed. Did they think this was enough to bring him down? Think again. He went through his own hand seals and yelled, Suiten, Sujinheki, pumping more chakra than needed into the technique. A large wall of water surrounded Naruto, shielding him from the fire. But by doing this, it left him blinded to his surroundings and it cost him. When the wall receded, his eyes widened because about 5 meters in front of him was a spinning mass of flesh in the form of Choji, and it was speeding towards him, aiming to flatten him. He flexed his arm and poised to strike the chubby ninja, but he had to abandon his plan when a wave of chakra grazed his arm courtesy of Neji. He retracted his arm at the last second and evaded the giant ball. He had no time to rest as Sai attacked him from above while riding on his ink bird. He sent out a volley of ink birds at him. Naruto evaded them all with ease but was then almost hit by a kick from Lee. He bent his body to its maximum level and avoided the bone-crunching kick from Lee. He didn't have time to breathe when Guy came in with an axe kick from above. Naruto's eyes widened. In a last-ditch effort, he put his hands above his head and braced himself for the impact that's about to come. Guy's kick made contact with Naruto's arms. Combined with the free fall, Naruto never stood a chance against Guy's kick. Naruto hit the ground with such force that it left a human-shaped dent in it. Naruto had the air knocked out of him and his arms felt like lead. In his momentary distraction, he failed to notice the spinning ball of flesh coming down on him. Choji hit him full force and Naruto was pushed deeper into the ground, a small crater forming because of it. His job done, Choji released his technique and jumped away. He took his position beside their friends and waited to see what will happen. Did we win? Asked Kiba, hoping they did. Not a chance. Shino, said Kakashi, his guard up and his Sharingan eye scanning his surroundings. Shino nodded and sent out his bugs to him, dry of chakra or at least some of it. The bugs squeezed through the cracks of the rubble and stuck themselves on Naruto. Bad idea. They got their answer when the rubble where Naruto was currently buried exploded and sent the debris flying towards the Konoha ninjas. Shino's bugs were obliterated by the force of the evaded the flying rocks with ease and retook their stance and waited for Naruto to show himself. Naruto slowly pushed himself up from the crater. When he did, he didn't look any worse for wear. The only thing that indicated he received any damage was his shirt, which was now completely torn in pieces. He dusted himself off and spoke in amusement, "Not bad. That really hurt." The Konoha ninja's eyes widened, definitely not expecting this kind of outcome of their combined attack. "How come you can still stand? That should have knocked you unconscious," said Kiba, not believing his eyes. Naruto chuckled in a taunting manner, "It wasn't that difficult. I used a wall of chakra to reduce the damage. Kiba growled in irritation. He was mocking them. Kakashi intervened before Kiba did something rash and foolish. Impressive, Naruto. It seems your control has improved drastically. The old you could never pull that off. Nah, my control still s. The technique is designed specifically for my large reserves. It's more about power rather than control, explained Naruto. Kakashi I smiled despite the situation. He couldn't help but feel proud of his sensei's son. Shall we go another round? Said Kakashi, already knowing the answer. Naruto nodded and waited for their attack to come. It's best if he keeps reacting to their attacks rather than attack himself. Despite being stronger, he was still outnumbered and severely at that. Sooner or later they will run out of juice. He was cut off from his planning by the damnable shadow once again pursuing him. He knew it was just a feint for the real attack, but nonetheless he had to evade it. He started running to the left, keeping ahead of the shadow. He kept his eyes on his surroundings and waited for them to make their move. But the attack never came. In fact, his friends didn't even take a step forwards. Why? His eyes widened. Genjutsu. He formed the seal for Kai, and released a burst of chakra from his system, ending the genjutsu. But it was too late. Guy's fist already made contact with his face and sent him flying. Midair he was assaulted by Kiba and his loyal partner. Akamaru came from below and hit Naruto in the back, sending him flying into the air where Kiba was already spinning. Yatsuga! Yelled Kiba, hitting Naruto in the stomach and sending him flying to the ground. But this time Naruto didn't hit the ground. Instead he recovered midair and landed gracefully. He looked up and his eyes widened once again. What he saw scared the shit out of him. Ino and Sakura both looked pissed and both were channeling chakra into their hands. A moment later they punched the ground with so much force it created a fissure that was now currently heading towards Naruto. Quickly forming the necessary hand seals, he yelled, Doden, Doryu Heki. He spat a large amount of mud in front of him which formed into a gigantic wall of rock, protecting him from the incoming attack. He sensed an attack coming from his left and shifted his body a bit to the left. A gentle fist narrowly missed his chest. Naruto and Neji made eye contact and both smirked. This was a rematch between the two. The two top-tier fighter exchanged some blows, testing each other in taijutsu. While Naruto focused on power, Neji focused on elegance. Their styles were completely opposite and that's what made it more fun. Neji went for a low kick but Naruto jumped over it. His sense of danger tingling, he dropped his head and allowed the kick from Lee to miss him. He had to shift his body a moment later because Guy came in flying with a kick to his chest. Blocking the attack with his forearm, the four fighters were currently in a standoff. A moment later, Naruto had to deal with three experts in taijutsu and he was looking forward to every single minute of it. A punch to the head was blocked by Naruto's wrist, a kick to his sternum blocked with his knee and another kick to his head blocked by his other hand. Naruto smirked and in a show of power pushed his assailants backwards. But when he did that, he had to dodge several ink birds and some kunai, a gift from Saiyan 1010 who was riding on top of one of Sai's ink birds. Deciding that they were quickly becoming a nuisance, he went through some hand seals at an amazing speed. Fuden, Daitapa. A gust of wind was unleashed towards the two ink birds, but the wind was suddenly intercepted by another wind, this one more powerful than the first. Naruto's wind never reached its designated target. He already knew who decided to intervene, Tamari of the Sand. A formidable wind master to test himself against. But that will have to wait because right now he had to dodge a water bullet from Kakashi. And then a Gatsuga from Kiba and Akamaru. Then a Hake Kuheikisho from Neji and Hinata. Kunais, shurikens, ink animals, a Gatsuga, Choji's massive hand, some bugs in a large stream of fire from Kakashi. Using Shunshin he created some distance between himself and his opponents. Seeing that they took a moment of respite, he let out a deep breath and wiped the sweat that accumulated itself on Naruto's face. He eyed his friends and stopped his gaze upon Kurenai, who just a moment ago surprised him by using a genjutsu despite being severely weakened from the fight a few days ago. She was being held up by Yugao and was breathing heavily. A small drop of blood was trailing from her nose, indicating that the chakra exhaustion came back full force. He spoke, "You caught me off guard with that genjutsu. You are already injured, Kurenai. Why push yourself further?" Kurenai calmed her breath and looked up towards Naruto, her gaze cold and calculative. Naruto flinched but kept her gaze upon her. To bring you back, shouted in determination Kurenai. She went into a coughing fit a moment later and was quickly surrounded by both Ino and Sakura, both applying medical chakra to her. Naruto's eyes saddened, but the sadness disappeared a moment later. He shook his head and got his head back into the fight. Shikamaru spoke. Kakashi-sensei. I know. He's getting serious, said Kakashi seriously. Naruto took a few deep breaths and flooded his system with his chakra, revitalizing him for the upcoming round 3. Shikamaru blinked, but by the time he reopened his eyes, Naruto was already gone from his position. A loud yell to the left caught his attention. He snapped his head to the left and saw Naruto's fist embedded in Kiba's gut. Kiba was shocked, he couldn't breathe. Naruto retracted his hand from his stomach and let Kiba fall to the ground, holding his stomach in pain. Naruto jumped back and avoided Lee's kick. Lee took a defensive position in front of Kiba, allowing him to recover. It took him a while, but Kiba eventually managed to stand back up, his eyes aflame with anger. Hinata was immediately by his side, holding his arm in support, and was actually glaring at Naruto. Naruto was surprised at her loyalty for Kiba. It seems some things have changed. Naruto's gaze hardened. Last chance, turn back or I won't hold back. Seeing that their determination to bring him back remained strong, he sighed and closed his eyes. So be it. Kakashi panicked. Lee, Guy, don't let him enter Sage mode. Activate your gates. Quickly opening 3 of the 8 forbidden gates, they rushed forward intent on stopping Naruto's ascension to Sage. Their speed increased twofold and they were by Naruto's side in the blink of an eye. Naruto cursed internally. He had to dodge their strikes and somehow find a way to stall them. Easier said than done now that they've opened their damnable gates. Quickly forming the hand seal for his favorite technique, Cage Bunching no Jutsu. 20 clones popped into the existence, their objective stall for time. Kakashi saw his plan and made his own plan to counteract his. Everyone, don't let him enter Sage mode. Sakura, Ino, stay with Yugao and Kurenai. You are needed here. Go. They jumped into action and helped Lee and Guy decimate Naruto's clones. Naruto cursed. This wasn't good. He needed time to enter his Sage mode. A voice in the back of his mind was telling him to use his power and end this in a flash, but Naruto refused. If he was to do this, he will do it with his own power. His musing was cut short when he saw that his clones were all defeated and his friends were staring at him defiantly. He couldn't help but smile. They really gave him a good fight, as expected of Yukaka-sensei. You just won't give me time to enter my Sage mode. He didn't get a response, so he sighed once more. You defeated 20 of my clones, how about 100? Smirked Naruto. Forming the hand seal, the clearing was flooded with 100 clones, obscuring the real Naruto from their view. Kakashi cursed and rushed in to attack them. Tamari, he yelled while forming the hand seals for a Gukaku no Jutsu. Tamari responded immediately and swung her massive fan, which unleashed a massive wind which absorbed the fire and made it bigger. More than half the clones were instantly obliterated. Since their purpose was stalling and not fighting head-on, they weren't given much chakra, only enough to stall them for a few moments. The rest of the clones were obliterated by the combined force of the rookies and Guy. When the smoke cleared, their eyes widened in fear and shock. There was the original Naruto standing there with a smirk while another clone of his was sitting cross-legged and meditating. Kakashi's eyes widened and immediately focused lightning chakra into the palm of his hand and sent it towards Naruto in the form of lightning wolf. The technique was on the collision course with Naruto, but Naruto's eyes remained closed and not moving an inch. When the wolf was a few inches away from his face, it was suddenly dispelled by a powerful wall of wind. Kakashi cursed and prepared himself. This was going to get ugly. Naruto's eyes opened and it revealed the orange pigmentation around his eyes and the toad-like eyes. That was too easy, Kaka-sensei. You didn't take into account that I only need a few seconds now to enter my Sage mode. Gatsuga, yelled Kiba coming from the left and Akamaru from the right. Kakashi panicked. No, Kiba, don't. But it was too late. Both attacks missed Naruto by a mile, but Naruto's attack didn't. A punch to the face for Kiba sent him flying into the forest, where he succumbed into the bliss known as unconsciousness. A kick that missed Akamaru on purpose, but the natural chakra surrounding his leg sent him towards his master, also down for the count. 2 down, who's next? Taunted Naruto with a smirk. He got his answer in the form of 2 taijutsu experts running side by side towards Naruto. Guy, Lee and Naruto both exchanged some deadly blows, but the power gap between them could be clearly seen. Naruto was holding back by a lot but was still holding his ground against the two. Guy saw this and shouted to Lee, "Lee, let our youth shine." Yosh, Guy-sensei. They both took their power-up stances, which they used whenever they opened more celestial gates. Their chakra spiked but dropped the moment afterwards. The reason? They were both sent flying by 2 Narutos. The original Naruto appeared above Guy while he was still flying from the previous punch and drop-kicked him to the ground, a massive cloud of dust appearing because of the impact. The same thing happened with Lee. But Naruto wasn't done. Naruto appeared above the still slumped Guy, who was trying to recover from all that damage, and put his hand on his torso, binding seal, subjugate. The same thing happened to Lee by Naruto's sage clone. Sealing characters spread throughout their bodies and glowed bright blue. The power-up which Guy and Lee received from their opening of the gates disappeared as soon as the marking activated on their bodies. A moment after, they joined Kiba and Akamaru in the Land of Dreams. Naruto dispersed his clone and jumped out of the hole made by Guy's fall. He turned towards his friends and waited for their move. He got it. 10-10 unleashed a volley of her weapons at Naruto, who evaded them using his enhanced perception of danger. His eyes widened though when he saw that one of the kunais which went flying right by his eyes had a flash bomb attached on its hilt. A moment later, the flash blinded him. Neji used this opportunity to get close and strike him in the chest using his Hyuga taijutsu. If only it were that easy. Naruto sidestepped the blow and Neji's eyes widened in disbelief, but he recovered quickly. He hit the ground and rolled to the left, dodging Naruto's deadly punch which shook the earth and made small crack in it. Neji regained his stance and attacked Naruto head-on. They exchanged blow after blow, and then Neji took the stance for his Hake Hyaku Nuhachi Sho and attacked Naruto faster, deadlier than before. Naruto smirked. It didn't matter if he was still momentarily blind, he can still sense them just fine, and Neji's increased speed didn't do a thing. His sense of danger spiked though, and he sensed another attack coming from behind. Feeling the chakra, he sensed it was Hinata, and she was using a similar technique to Neji's but a weaker version. Frowning, he had now 2 Hyugas to deal with and their sneaky strikes to his chakra points. Using his nimble body, he weaved around their strikes, but soon their teamwork got the best of him, and a gentle fist to the body from Neji and Hinata's punch that hit his shoulder sent him flying backwards, but he managed to recover midair and landed gracefully. He rubbed his stomach and he cracked his shoulder. "Niece. I actually felt that. If it weren't for my chakra defense, that would have really hurt. You certainly have grown stronger," complimented Naruto, his eyes now fully opened. "Let's go again," said Naruto. This time he was on the offensive. Using his speed, he was onto Neji and Hinata in a flash, surprising the 2 Hyugas. Despite having their superior eyes, they were having a lot of difficulties following his movements. And they had a feeling he wasn't going full out. The 2 Hyugas were forced on the defensive and content themselves by blocking his powerful strikes. Naruto sent a punch towards Hinata, but she managed to incline her head to the left, allowing the punch to miss her. Her eyes widened though when her eyes picked up on chakra that surrounded Naruto's fist. In a reflex, she too put up a wall of chakra that protected her head from Naruto's chakra. But Naruto's chakra was more powerful than hers, and so she was sent flying. "Hinata!" yelled Neji, sprinting towards her. It's a good thing he did, because Naruto was already in motion, appearing high in the air, and dived towards her with a fist poised for strike. Neji took a defensive stance in front of Hinata, who was still recovering from that punch. "Kaden!" yelled Neji, forming the biggest Kaden ever, protecting both him and Hinata in his sphere of chakra. But that didn't deter Naruto one bit. Pumping more energy into his strike, he collided with the sphere of chakra. A massive explosion rocketed the clearing. Nobody knew who won that little scuffle. When the dust settled, Naruto was seen standing over 2 prone bodies of Hinata and Neji. Kakashi saw that. He said something to them but couldn't hear what. Naruto sighed at his 2 friends. If only they listened to him, then this needn't have happened. He turned back at his remaining opponents and started walking towards them. He heard Kakashi yell, "Diamond formation." 10-10 took her position in the back, Kakashi was up front, Choji to the left and Tamari to the right. Sai was hovering above them on his ink bird. Shikamaru was in the middle of the formation where he could easily transmit his orders. Shino meanwhile was in front Sakura and Ino as the last line of defense. Seeing their formation and knowing that they've got their blind spots covered thoroughly, he decided to disperse them and make them easy pickings. Futon. Kami Aroshi. A whirling vortex of wind was sent rocketing towards Kakashi and his group. Kakashi, tched, and made some seals of his own, Doden, Doryu Heki. He slammed his hands on the ground and pumped twice as much chakra as needed into the technique. A 40 feet tall and 35 feet wide wall of earth erupted in front of the group, shielding them from the destructive wind. Sai hovered above the wall and protected them from above. His eyes widened when he saw Naruto jump over the wall and spew a large ball of fire at him. Sai abandoned his bird and dived towards the ground, evading the fire. Midair he drew another ink bird and took up in the air once again. Naruto landed on top of the wall and eyed his opponents. Pumping chakra into his arm, he struck the massive wall and destroyed it into tiny little pieces. He landed gracefully in front of his old sensei and his friends. They were all prepped and ready for another round with him. Naruto created 5 clones without seals. The clones knew what needed to be done. Each clone disappeared in a burst of speed and appeared in front of his designated opponent and engaged them into a taijutsu fight. The clone that got Sai as his opponent was blasting the slippery ink user with jutsu after jutsu, hoping to bring him to the ground where he can do his magic with taijutsu. The original Naruto remained behind and faced down Kakashi. Kakashi sneaked a glance towards his team and saw that they weren't faring well, especially 10-10. She wasn't made for a straight-out taijutsu match and with Naruto no less. Choji was still holding his ground but he was beginning to tire out. Sai was still dodging kunais and wind techniques from his clone but sooner or later he will make a mistake. Tamari was trying to keep her distance and attack her clone with her wind fan techniques and was holding her own for the moment, but the question is for how long. Shikamaru actually caught his clone with his shadow but his breathing was beginning to get erratic and sweat was pouring down his face. It seems he won't hold on for long. It's just like the bell test, huh sensei? Smiled Naruto. Kakashi I smiled, just like old times, huh? Let's see if the student surpassed his teacher. He took his stance and pumped chakra into his feet so that he will be able to keep up with Naruto's speed, at least he hoped so. I still have a minute left until my Sage mode expires. Let's see if he can hold on until then. Pondered Naruto in his mind. Both fighters rushed each other, kunais drawn. Steel met steel several times, both fighters testing, feeling each other and both were grinning at each other. Naruto flung his kunai at his teacher and Kakashi did the same. The kunais dispelled each other and fell harmlessly to the ground. The teacher and student collided with each other, a fist in Naruto's hand and a fist in Kakashi's hand. Kakashi winced at the power behind it and was grateful he pumped chakra into it, otherwise this would have really hurt. They disengaged from one another and jumped away, but as soon as their feet touched the ground they were at it once again. A kick from Naruto was directed towards Kakashi's head, but Kakashi's experience and his Sharinganai allowed him to dodge the fast and powerful kick. Kakashi lashed out with a sweeping kick of his own and swept the ground from Naruto's feet, making him lose his balance. Naruto lost his momentum and tumbled forwards head first. Kakashi proceeded with a punch to Naruto's chin, but Naruto would have none of grabbed Kakashi's fist and used him to regain his balance. His feet firmly on the ground, he flung Kakashi over his shoulder with amazing strength. Kakashi was flying towards the forest with amazing force, but he wasn't known as a legendary ninja throughout the nations for nothing. He recovered and landed on the ground but still skidded backwards for a few meters. He righted himself and smiled towards his student. You truly are something, Naruto. Even though I pushed myself to the limits for the last 3 years, you are still far and above me. I'm proud of you. Naruto secretly beamed at the praise, but he didn't show it outwards. What use is all this power if I couldn't save my friend? Kakashi sighed at his remark. Naruto, I understand what you mean. I was once in the exact position as you are now. I wallowed in my grief and guilt and I pushed my friends away just like you. It wasn't until your father talked to me and beat some sense into me that I realized what I've been doing with my life. Naruto's eyes widened and happiness reappeared in his eyes at the mention of his father. He still remembered his father's last words to him, I believe in you, my son. His mood always brightened when he remembered that moment. Kakashi saw that he got his attention continued, since your father sadly isn't here it's up to me, as his student to show you what you've been missing. Naruto looked into his eyes and saw pride and joy. Kakashi's Sharingan spun wildly and Naruto suddenly felt a bit dizzy. He knew it was a genjutsu the moment he looked into that cursed eye, but he knew it wasn't mean to be an attack. He will wait and see what his sensei has to show him. A moment later Kakashi was replaced by the image of his godfather, Ero Sennin. He spoke in his cheery voice, the way to happiness and peace isn't brute power but acceptance. If people accepted one another and acknowledge each other, there wouldn't be need for this shinobi system. Remember Naruto, love is the key to everything. His image faded into the wind. The smiling image of his parents came next. Naruto, you are our legacy, you are our son and we will always be proud of you, no matter what. We love you, son, said the smiling image of his father. His mother was there crying tears of joy and smiling at him. He wanted to run and hold them tightly but he knew they were just an illusion. They disappeared a moment later and Naruto let a few tears escape his eyes. Then came the images of all his friends he made throughout his life, even Zabuza and Haku were there. They were all waving at him and smiling at him. And then Sasuke appeared in front of his group. The image of Sasuke was the same as from that day. His mouth was bloody and he was smiling at him. Goodbye, my brother, he said and disappeared along with his friends. The illusion broke and tears were now freely falling down Naruto's cheeks. Kakashi spoke. This genjutsu brought forth memories and desires from your subconsciousness. I know you don't really want to do this, Naruto. I can see you are struggling with yourself. Just reach out and grab our hands and we will help you. Naruto pondered for a moment and then smiled. He wiped off the tears that now marred his cheeks and spoke, I understand what you are trying to say, sensei, I really do. But this is something I have to go through alone. No, you don't. If you face this alone, you will fail. You need to learn to rely on your friends just like they do with you. You can't do everything by yourself. You can't bring peace by yourself. You can't live by yourself and you can't go through this alone, said Kakashi. Naruto remembered back to the time when he spoke with Itachi during the war. Do not forget your friends, said the stoic Uchiha. How could he forget? His friends are all he thinks about. They are what keep him going. Listen to him, Naruto. We are all here for you. Let us help you, said Ino, now standing beside Kakashi while Sakura was healing the people that were just defeated by Naruto's clones and was being protected by Shino in case Naruto decides to attack their medic, even though it was highly unlikely he will because of personal reasons. Besides, Shino's techniques are useless in this fight. His bugs are meant to the opponent's chakra, but Naruto has chakra levels the size of a biju, so it's pointless to try. Sakura joined them a moment later when she finished with taking care of others. Naruto, please come back. Naruto was silent for a few moments but then raised his hand high into the sky. With a loud roar he concentrated his remaining sage chakra and created a ball of chakra the size of a small mountain. I'm sorry, he whispered sadly. A moment later he unleashed the ball of chakra into the ground in front of him, creating a huge shockwave and an explosion. The Konoha ninjas braced themselves and held their ground with chakra. Yugao helped Kurenai while the others were at a safe distance so they weren't in danger. The cloud dust cleared after a few minutes but Naruto was no longer there. Kakashi sighed and dropped his headband over his eye. This fight was over. Tend to the wounded. We failed, said Kakashi solemnly. Ino and Sakura complied, both on the verge of tears. They picked up the injured and huddled them together so that Sakura and Ino could tend to them easier. The mood was palpable. They were devastated that they failed, but there was still fire behind those eyes. They will recover and try again and then again and again. They won't give up. Are you all right, Kurenai? Said Yugao in concern for her friend. Kurenai shakily nodded. That stunt she pulled with the genjutsu left her very weakened and her body was aching. I'll be fine. Go take care of the others and get yourself checked out. You are still injured. Yugao nodded and went to help Ino and Sakura but still kept an eye on her in case she collapsed. Kakashi maneuvered through the injured and plopped himself down beside Kurenai and sighed. "How are you?" asked Kakashi. "Been better." "You?" replied Kurenai. "Same," said Kakashi. Silence ensued afterwards while looking at Sakura and Ino plus Yugao while they tended to the wounded. Despite the situation, they managed to keep their heads in the game and focus on healing the rest. "You should get some rest. We leave in 2 days," said Kakashi while standing up and leaving her company. Kurenai looked towards Kakashi, who was just about to pick up Guy and carry him inside the house, which remained intact despite the battle that raged a moment earlier. Sakura and Ino did the same with the others while Yugao walked towards her and offered Kurenai her hand. "Let's go, Kur-chan." Kurenai took hold of her hand and allowed herself to be pushed upwards. She leaned on Yugao's shoulder and they walked towards the house. Halfway there, Kurenai spoke. "Would you mind taking me to the lake? I want to sleep there tonight. The house is too crowded already." Yugao eyed her. "Fine, but I'm sleeping with you then." Kurenai nodded and smiled weakly. Kurenai sat down near the water edge and looked onwards at the calm lake, now shallower than before because of all the water techniques used earlier. She waited for Yugao to bring some pillows and some sleeping bags. A moment later she was rejoined by Yugao and they laid out their sleeping arrangements. "Good night," said Kurenai and laid down. And so did Yugao. "Good night." The night began and the horrible day ended. Morning. Yugao stirred in her sleep and stretched her body. She yawned and stood up. She cleared her eyes, which widened a moment later. The bed next to her was empty. She panicked and rushed inside the house, but Kakashi stopped her before she could barge in and disturb the people inside. "She's gone." "She went after him," explained Kakashi. Yugao's eyes widened. "Why?" "I don't know, but if I had to guess, is to confront him and help him. She knows how it is like to lose somebody close to you, so she can relate to him. She left early this morning. Why didn't you stop her? She is still injured and was in no position to go after him. Naruto clearly doesn't want to return, and what if he fights her?" "Then what?" yelled Yugao. "That won't happen," said the voice of Neji while coming out of the house. Yugao turned her attention to him, demanding an explanation. "Naruto won't hurt her. He couldn't. He is still his old self. He held back against us. I saw it. Whenever he attacked us, he would restrain himself at the last possible moment. If he wanted to, he could have defeated us all in a matter of minutes. He will listen to Kurenai, I know he will." Yugao balled her fists and her body shook in concern for her friend. She calmed down after a few moments. "I hope you are right." Sakura and Ino came out looking disheveled and worn out. "Guys, what's with all the shouting? We are trying to sleep," said Ino, yawning in the process. "Just a disagreement, nothing to worry about." I smiled Kakashi. Sakura yawned. "Well, since I'm up, I'm going to make a new batch of soldier pills. It seems I misplaced my last batch." Kakashi smiled again and looked towards the rising sun. "It's in your hands now, Kurenai." "Happy birthday, Sasuke. Another year has gone by since our fateful meeting," smiled solemnly Naruto while kneeling over Sasuke's grave. His fingers traced his name on the tombstone he carved out for him. It wasn't anything special. It had his name on it and the date of his birth and death. Above the name was the Uchiha emblem, Sasuke's pride and joy. Below the name read, "An enemy to most, a friend to few, a brother to one." His sword was buried deep into the ground next to the grave. The world is a better place than last year. More people are at peace now. Soon, very soon, everything will be alright, spoke Naruto to Sasuke. He sat down next to the grave and looked at the sky and smiled. "I still remember the first time we met. It was after your family died. You were sitting on that pier and I was walking home from my training session. When I looked at you, I saw myself. Lost and alone. I wanted to talk to you that day, but I couldn't. What would I say? Hi, I'm Naruto and I want to be your friend." I can see how that would have gone. You would have said something like, "I don't need Adobe as a friend." Chuckled bitterly Naruto, a small tear cascading down his cheek. Rain started falling on Naruto's body, reflecting his mood. He remained silent for a few moments, just watching the raindrops fall on him and wash away his own tears. "Where did we go wrong, Sasuke? What happened to us?" Asked Naruto. No one. We were happy. Images of Team 7 and the time they spent together appeared in his mind. All the laughter, arguing, fighting, smiling, we were teammates, we were friends, we were brothers. We had everything we ever wanted. We were no longer alone. The image of Orochimaru and Tobi appeared next and unbridled hatred arose in his gut. Why did you have to follow your Uchiha pride? Why didn't you listen to your heart and stayed with us? You knew all along what will happen the next time we fought. Why couldn't you let go of your Uchiha past and be Sasuke instead? Why did fate choose us? Two brothers fighting one another, for what? Peace, hatred, friendship, yelled Naruto, his anger slipping. His breathing became erratic and his tears flowed faster, stronger, deeper. He punched the ground in front of him, cracking it slightly. He didn't care about the blood flowing out of his knuckles, the pain in his heart was much worse. Why did we have to be born as Uchiha and Jinchuriki? Why? Yelled Naruto into the sky, seeking answers but none came. He slumped forward and sobbed into the ground. He banged his fist on the ground several times until he couldn't feel his hands anymore and then he banged some more. His wails could be heard in the wind, carrying it across the valley where it all began and ended. After painful several minutes, Naruto slumped back against the cold tombstone of his friend. They found me, you know. Our friends found me after 3 years of running. I miss them so much. They've got stronger. He rubbed his forearms and smiled. They came for me but I couldn't face them. I could barely look them in the eye. I was supposed to be the child of prophecy that was going to bring peace to the world but look at me. All depressed and weak. You are probably laughing at me right now, Harem. Smiled Naruto. After a few minutes of just looking at the sky crying he stood up and knelt over the tombstone. He traced the finger over Sasuke's name and sighed, I hope you are happy wherever you are. I'll see you next year. Said Naruto, sadness rolling of his body. At that moment he became aware of another person in the valley and the person was behind him. I expected Kakashi to come here and not you, Kurenai. You are just full of surprises lately, huh? He stood up and turned around and faced Kurenai. Quote 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 quote. What do you mean she went after him? Yelled a bandaged Kiba, holding his ribs. Yugao sighed. Kakashi said she went after him, that's all I know. Kiba growled, then what are we waiting for? Said Kiba, addressing all the rest of the now conscious rookies. For you to calm down. Said Kakashi, entering the room. Kakashi eyed everyone in the room and spoke, look, I know you are all injured and hurt and I won't hold it against you if you don't want to come. His speech was interrupted by shuffling of clothes and footsteps. He looked and saw his entire team looking at him, armed and ready to go. He smiled, well then, let's go. Kiba took point and he and Akamaru sniffed out Kurenai's scent. They all followed him, trusting his nose. Quote 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 quote. Naruto turned around and faced Kurenai. What awaited him was a slap to the face. Naruto let the slap hit him, he thought he deserved it. A small trickle of blood traveled from his mouth down his chin but that wasn't the focus of his attention. It was the fury in Kurenai's eyes. Her body was trembling, her fists turning white from all that pressure, her eyes burning with anger. Why? Was her question. Naruto sighed and shook his head, I told you already. You wouldn't understand. Kurenai shook her head frantically, bullshit. I understand perfectly. You are a coward, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto looked away from her gaze, he knew she was right. He was a coward. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. What does it matter to you? Kurenai yelled, you are not the man I thought you were. I always thought you were a strong, honest, caring person. One who would do anything for his friends and never break his promise to another. But now I see that you are nothing more than a coward, a liar and I hate liars. An image of a smiling Asuma appeared in her head, waving at her before making his way to his team. He yelled back to her, "I'll be back before you know it." That was the last smile he ever gave her. He never came back. He lied. "You are wrong. Everything I do and everything I did was for my friends," answered Naruto, although he himself didn't believe that. "Stop lying. If everything you did was for your friends, then how come you were running away from us for the last 3 years? I'll tell you why. Because you were scared, Uzumaki Naruto. You were scared to look us into our eyes and tell us that you killed Sasuke, your brother," responded Kurenai heatedly, making Naruto's eyes widen. She hit the spot all right. "You were afraid because you thought your friends will judge you and abandon you. Let me tell you something, you are not a god. You are not the child of prophecy," said Kurenai, poking him in the chest with her finger. Naruto was wide-eyed the whole time and was listening to what her heart was saying to him. "You are not the savior of this world and you will never be." "You know why?" asked Kurenai, but wasn't expecting an answer, "because you are trying to do everything by yourself. You think you are all high and mighty and think you can do everything by yourself. Wrong. You are a human just like the rest of us. You have flaws and weaknesses just like us, but not like you. We share our weaknesses with our friends and comrades. We rely on them and they rely on us. Together we are stronger and together we can make a change. Let me ask you something. Why did you fight Sasuke alone? Why didn't you let others help you? Was it pride, honor, justice?" continued Kurenai, her words burning deep into Naruto's heart. Naruto frowned. "Sasuke was my responsibility and my alone," said Naruto, raising his voice, but that didn't deter Kurenai one bit. "And look where that brought you. Sasuke is dead and you are alone and running away from your friends." Naruto winced, his heart in pain. "What do you know, huh? What do you know of Sasuke? You didn't see him that day, you didn't fight him that day. You didn't see what he became. I fought him alone because I couldn't risk the lives of my friends. Rest assured, if any of them came with me they would be dead right now. I couldn't live with that, I just couldn't," responded Naruto, his emotions flaring. "Stop making decisions for other people. Your friends knew full well what they were getting into. If they died they would have died for something they believed in. They would have died to save a friend, but you didn't give them that choice, did you, Naruto?" yelled back Kurenai, not backing down. "It was my sacrifice to make, not theirs," shouted back Naruto, but realized his slip up. Kurenai put a hand to her mouth, not believing what she just heard. "You were planning on dying with him. What is wrong with you? Do you realize what you are saying?" shouted Kurenai, her breathing becoming erratic. "You don't understand," said Naruto sadly. That got him a punch to the face which sent him sprawling to the ground, skidding a few meters before hitting Sasuke's tombstone, cracking it a bit. "Idiot. If you die there is no tomorrow. Did you think of the consequences of your action? I thought you wanted to prevent pain and not make it. Think about how your friends would have felt if you have died. Think about Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, Sakura and the rest of the gang. You are just a coward who wanted an easy way out," yelled Kurenai, tears now falling down her face, mixing with the rain. Naruto remained silent and so did Kurenai, who was still breathing heavily and her body was shaking and she looked like she was on her last legs. She spoke after a few moments, now a bit calmer. "Do you know why I came after you?" asked Kurenai. Naruto looked up and gazed into her scarlet eyes. "Why?" She smiled a weak smile and pulled something out of her pocket. "It was the book in the box she found in that underwater cave, because I thought you were worth saving. You may not be the child of prophecy in my eyes, but the world is a better place because of you. I came for you because I want that kind of world to remain the same, for my son Sake." Quote. Naruto said nothing and remained silent and looked down, away from her. Kurenai placed the box and the book in his lap and spoke, "I had hoped that they still lived on in you. But I see you ignored their wishes and did the exact opposite." Naruto's eyes widened for a moment, but they quickly reverted back to the eyes full of shame and guilt. His heart felt heavy all of a sudden. Kurenai sighed and shook her head. "I guess I was wrong. You truly are not the Naruto I know." She turned around and walked away, but after a few steps she collapsed and started going into shock. Her body shook violently and her eyes rolled into the back of her head, leaving only the white pupils. Naruto panicked and sprung on his feet, pocketed the box and the book and was by her side immediately. He shook her body, hoping to get some kind of response. Kurenai. Wake up. Come on, wake up. During his shaking, a bag fell out of her pocket and a few soldier pills came out. Naruto's eyes widened in horror. What did you do, Kurenai? How many did you take? He got his shit together and sprung into action. Kurama, yelled Naruto out loud, already holding Kurenai bridal style and his feet prepped for a long run. I'm on it, yelled the lifelong partner of Naruto's. Naruto jumped out of the canyon and proceeded to run through the forest, jumping atop the branches. As soon as he hit the first branch, yellow chakra started sprouting out of his body and enveloping him in a protective blanket. On his back formed a cape with the kanji for peace on it. As soon as Kurama worked his magic, Naruto's speed increased 20-fold. The only thing that was on his mind was Kurenai and Konoha. His other rational thoughts forgotten, he sped towards Konoha. The trees in his way never stood a chance. A road of destruction followed his movement. If somebody were to be watching him from the sky, they would have seen a yellow blur destroying everything in its path. Rest assured, the land will never be the same after Naruto's done with it. Naruto had a look of worry on his face and he was grinding his teeth together, willing his body to go faster and faster. He felt that Kurenai was still shaking heavily and so he shouted, more. I need more, Kurama. And he got more. More chakra erupted from his body and circled around his feet. If he was nothing but a blur before, he was now invisible to the naked eye. The only evidence he was ever there was the vast destruction caused by Kurama's chakra and Naruto's speed. His body was in pain, his feet were bleeding, but his will remained strong. He failed before, he won't fail again. Quote 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 quote. Something's coming at us, warned Neji, eyeing the yellow blur with his Byakugan. Kakashi looked up ahead and his sensory skills sensed something he hasn't felt in a long time. His eyes widened. Everyone, get away from here. At the last possible second, they all dodged and the blur continued onwards, in the direction of Konoha. What was that? Grumbled Sakura, dusting herself off. She looked up and saw all the damage done by whatever that was. The forest that was there a moment before was now nothing but a pile of rocks and destroyed trees. That was Naruto and he's heading for Konoha. Something must have happened, explained Kakashi, the feeling in his gut telling him it has got to do something with Kurenai. What about Kurenai? Asked Sakura. She's with him, said Kiba, already on his feet and jumping towards Konoha. A moment later they all followed after him. With Naruto, he was running for a few minutes now, at his full speed. He was exhausted and he was starting to get dizzy, probably because of the blood loss he is experiencing right now. The tendons in his feet weren't ready for such an exertion. Despite Kurama's incredibly healing power, not even he could keep up with all the damage done to his feet. It's a miracle he is still on his feet. He gritted his teeth and ignored the pain. He looked up ahead and saw that the forest was thinning out, indicating he was getting close to Konoha. He noticed that Kurenai stopped shaking and that her breathing was becoming shallower. Willing his body to hold on, he pushed onward for one final push. He saw the gates ahead and when he was close to the walls, he used his last remaining power and jumped over them and towards the direction of the hospital. He was praying that they didn't change its location. He was free-falling towards the hospital. He clutched Kurenai closer to his chest and formed a protective barrier of chakra over her, protecting her from the impact that's about to come, just like with the trees before. The hospital shook because of the impact. The patients were yelling obscenities and the doctors and nurses were running around frantically, trying to minimize the damage and calm the patients down. Naruto landed. I need help. Please, hurry. A single doctor among the masses that were still shocked by the appearance of this stranger, responded to his plea for help and rushed towards him. This way, he said, leading Naruto to a surgery room. Naruto burst into the surgery room and laid Kurenai down gently on the bed. The doctor and a couple of nurses went to work and analyzed Kurenai. Naruto was breathing heavily, the chakra from Kurama receding back into the seal. His vision was becoming blurry and his knees were shaking. But he remained on his feet. He will stay by her side, just like she was for him moments before. Quote 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 quote. I'll be back before you know it, smiled Asuma, kissing Kurenai on the cheek, making her blush with happiness and embarrassment. Asuma was running towards his team, while waving back at her. She smiled to him and waved back, but she couldn't get rid of that feeling in her gut that was saying something bad is going to happen soon. Quote 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 quote. Asuma sensei passed away, said Shikamaru sadly. Kurenai put a hand over her mouth, her eyes tearing up. She started sobbing, then crying and finally wailing. She dropped to the ground. No. Quote 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 quote. Kurenai shot up in her bed and immediately winced at the pain that traveled throughout her body. Her breathing was ragged and she was sweating heavily. Taking a moment to calm down, she took a few deep breaths and felt her heart rate slow down. Having done that, she looked around the room. A strong smell of medicine and anesthetics assaulted her nostrils and she knew where she was. A hospital. She sighed and tried to remember what happened after she finished talking with Naruto. All she could remember was being held by something warm and a strong gust of wind whipping at her face. She shook her head, trying not to think about Naruto and their heated argument. She was broken out of her musings when the door to her room opened up and in came the Hokage herself. Tsunade looked surprised judging by her look, but it was replaced by a light smirk. Glad to see you up and running. You had me worried there for a moment. Kurenai looked away from the older woman. She knew what she had done was foolish and probably a bit suicidal, but at that moment she wasn't really thinking with a clear mind. Tsunade walked to the bed and picked up the clipboard and made some corrections on it before putting it down again. She spoke, I hope you understand the gravity of what you did. You are very lucky to be alive. A human body isn't designed to sustain so many power-ups. Honestly, if you were brought in a minute later there would be nothing I could have done. Kurenai's eyes widened. She didn't know she was cutting it so close. Asuma Jr. came to her mind and she realized how foolish and stupid had she been. Tsunade sighed when she saw her dejected look. Look, yes, what you did was wrong, but you did it for the right reason. Despite the situation, I wanted to thank you. You brought Naruto back. Kurenai turned to look the older woman into the eyes. Where is he? In the other room, tied down to a bed until I say he can leave. Smirked Tsunade, proud that she still got the power. Kurenai had a worried look on her face. Is he hurt? What happened? Despite their argument, she didn't want to see the young man in pain and suffering. Quote 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 quote. Sir, I need you to leave the room, said a frowning nurse trying to make Naruto leave the room. But Naruto wouldn't budge. The nurse saw that he was shaking and finally noticed the pool of blood gathering around his and her feet. Sir, you are injured. Let me take a look at you. Naruto waved of her concern and help. I'm fine. Focus on her. The nurse frowned and tried to inspect his wounds but was cut off from someone busting into the room. When she saw who it was, she immediately gave the person a deep bow and a smile of respect. Lady Tsunade. Naruto froze at the name. He could feel his Bakunin's eyes boring a hole into his skull. Tsunade seemingly ignored his presence and walked past him and towards Kurenai and the doctors who were working on her. Naruto stared at her back and sighed. He could swore he would get punched by her. She spoke. What's her condition? The lead doctor answered. She seems to be suffering from massive chakra exhaustion and some of her chakra coils are torn to pieces. Several of her muscles are torn from overexertion and from not allowing them the time to heal properly. Her body shut down and she is currently in a coma. Tsunade nodded and ran her glowing green hands over Kurenai's body, mainly to confirm the doctor's theory. She frowned in concern after finishing her analysis. This isn't good. Start on the chakra transfusion immediately. I'll take care of the coils, said Tsunade professionally. Naruto's breath hitched in his throat and he spoke in a shaky tone. Is she going to be alright? Tsunade was silent for a few moments but then spoke. She'll be alright. What happened to her? Naruto suddenly felt very guilty about the whole situation. If it weren't for his childish behavior, she would have never come after him and wouldn't be in this situation. She came after me even though she was already exhausted and she took a lot of soldier pills and, now, he looked down and cursed himself for his weakness. Are you hurt? Asked Tsunade, her eyes not leaving Kurenai's prone body while she was healing her coils. Naruto shook his head even though his feet were burning. I'm fine. But Tsunade would have none of it. Nurse, take him to recovery room 02. I'll be there as soon as I finish up here. The nurse bowed and proceeded to try and drag Naruto out of the room but Naruto wouldn't budge. I'm staying right here. I'm fine, protested Naruto. Tsunade turned her head around but still focusing on the healing. Her eyes were cold as ice. I said go to the other room. I'll be there shortly. Naruto kept his gaze upon her but relented afterwards. It wouldn't do him good for him to start a fight when Kurenai is still injured. He complied and limped out of the room with the nurse in tow. Tsunade sighed and shook her head. A small smile graced her lips after Naruto left the room and a tear escaped her eyes. You're back, thought a happy Tsunade. She rid herself of those happy thoughts and focused on Kurenai. Naruto was sitting on his bed, unrest evident on him. He jumped off the bed and started pacing around the room. His legs are as good as healed now. He bit his thumb and constantly looked towards the door, hoping to get some good news. The door slowly creaked open and he anxiously awaited to hear the news. In came Tsunade and she wasn't looking happy. Naruto walked towards her. Bakken, how is she? When he was close to her, Tsunade struck him in the face with a punch that sent him flying into the bed and turning it over. Naruto rubbed his head. He could feel the lump forming. He looked up and saw a very angry Tsunade looking over him. He gulped. Tsunade proceeded to pick him up by his collar and she poised for another punch. Naruto shut his eyes and awaited his punishment. It never came. Instead of the punch filled with pain and internal injuries, he was pulled into a warm and loving hug. He opened his eyes and saw that he was in the arms of a very distressed and teary Tsunade. Her body was shaking while hugging him. After recovering from his momentary shock, he smiled and returned the gesture while smiling widely. He missed this. He missed her. Idiot. What took you so long? Said Tsunade shakily. Ah, you see, this black crossed my road and I had to take the long way round, chuckled Naruto in amusement. Tsunade chuckled and squeezed him tighter. After a few moments she retracted from his hug and wiped away her tears. It's unbefitting for a Hokage to cry in front of her soldiers. Kurenai will be fine. We took care of her exhaustion and the torn chakra coils. She had me worried there for a moment. Smiled Tsunade. Naruto let out a sigh of relief. Danger averted. Thank God. That's good to hear. It's all my fault she's in this situation, said Naruto looking down. Tsunade frowned. What happened? Naruto sighed. He told her everything that happened from the fight to Kurenai following him to the Valley of the End and what she told him and how many pills she took. Kurenai is one lucky woman, said Tsunade. Naruto raised an eyebrow and Tsunade explained, if it weren't for you and your freaky speed she would be dead right now. She was in a coma and her brain was already shutting down because not enough chakra was being fed into it. Honestly, if you came a minute or two later even I would have trouble saving her. Naruto once again looked down at his feet, not wanting to show his guilty eyes. Tsunade saw this and decided not to bother him further about this. It was obvious he was hurting and feeling guilty about the whole situation. She switched the topic. How are your feet? Asked Tsunade, looking down at his ankles that were previously shedding blood. Naruto shook his head. They are fine, completely healed. Nothing to worry about. Tsunade walked past him and picked up the bed and set it in the right position. I'll be the judge of that. Sit, ordered Tsunade with the voice that left no room for objections. Naruto sighed but complied nonetheless. He lied down and let Tsunade do her work. After a minute of scanning his legs, Tsunade spoke, "You are still injured and that means you won't leave this room until I say so." "Got that?" threatened Tsunade. Naruto gulped and nodded frantically. "Good," smiled Tsunade. "Are you going to continue running away from us or will you stay here for good?" asked Tsunade seriously. "Do I have a choice?" smiled sadly Naruto. "Nope," answered Tsunade in amusement. Naruto smiled in response. "I'll let you know if anything changes with Kurenai," said Tsunade, walking out of the door. Naruto looked up at the ceiling and then closed his eyes. He was exhausted both psychically and mentally. Quote 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 quote. Tsunade waved her off. "He's fine. He overexerted himself with all that running but his legs are fine now. Traveling over 250 miles in a minute and a half will do that to you. I'm just making him stay in the hospital as a sort of a punishment for making me worry all these years." Kurenai smiled and could feel a small amount of relief coursing through her body and mind. "That's good to hear. Did Kakashi and the others come back yet?" asked Kurenai. Tsunade nodded. "They came back in the evening the day you were brought in. You were sleeping for 2 days and a half. They came to visit you as soon as they arrived but I kicked them out and had them inspected for their own injuries. They are fine, it's their pride that's mostly hurt," said Tsunade, alleviating Kurenai's concerns. "Mommy," came a voice from the door, interrupting them. Kurenai smiled at the voice of her pride and joy. Asuma jumped into her arms and hugged her tightly. "I missed you, Mommy," said a happy Asuma, not realizing the danger she was in for the last few days. "I missed you too, honey. Were you a good boy when I was away?" Asuma nodded and squeezed his mommy tighter. "Are you kidding me? The brat wouldn't shut up about you. It was mommy that and mommy there, geez," grinned Anko. Kurenai smiled at her best friend. "Good to see you, Anko. Thanks for watching over him." She waved her off. "I did it for the free dango," grinned Anko. Kurenai chuckled at her friend but focused on her son. She ruffled his hair and put him down. "Well, it looks like I'm no longer needed. I must return to my Hokage duties. Those old farts must be already complaining about my absence from the tower," scowled Tsunade while making her way out of the room and hospital. "Thanks again for everything, Lady Tsunade," said Kurenai. Tsunade waved and then disappeared around the corner. "Mommy, why are you covered in bandages?" asked Asuma. Kurenai scratched her head. "Mommy fell and hurt herself but don't worry. Tomorrow I'll be as good as new and I'll take you out for some ice cream." "How does that sound?" The sound of Asuma jumping up and down the room was her answer. "Come on kid, your mommy needs to rest and it's getting late. You'll see her again tomorrow," said Anko, giving him a stern look. Anko knew he would try to object and stay with Kurenai but it wasn't allowed. Asuma let out an ooh ooh sound but then nodded at his favorite aunt. He ran towards his mommy and gave her a big kiss on the cheek and then ran back towards Anko and jumped into her arms much to her displeasure. "Kid, what did I say about hugging? Mitarashi Anko doesn't hug," growled Anko in annoyance. Asuma just giggled and held on tighter. Kurenai laughed at her friend's predicament and waved at her son. Asuma waved back and smiled widely. Anko was grumbling something while walking out of the room. She waved Kurenai goodbye and closed the door. Kurenai smiled and laughed slightly before laying back down. Despite her sore body and muscles she was feeling light and happy. Seeing her son and best friend did that to her. She looked to the left and stared out of the window. She could see the sun which was just about to set. The sky was turning orange with a tinge of purple. It looked beautiful in Kurenai's eyes. One of the many wonders Konoha. If she concentrated hard enough she would have noticed something else. A figure sitting right outside the window who was also looking at the sky. Naruto was contemplating on whether or not he should go in and apologize for what he did. In the end, he decided not to and let her have her moment of respite. She deserved it. The last few days were hectic for her. He sighed and disappeared into the wind and back into his room. If Bakken found out he left his room, there would be hell to pay. Kurenai noticed the wind shift and opened the window next to her bed. She looked right and left and saw nothing and felt no one. She frowned. She could swear she felt something. With one last look around and seeing no one, she closed the window and went back to bed. She sighed and closed her eyes and thought about everything that happened to her in the last few days. Her mind tracked back to the argument she had with Naruto before she collapsed. Now that she is thinking clearly, she realized she was harsh on him. He didn't deserve all those words. She didn't know why she blew on him like that. It's like she released all of her pent-up anger and sorrow on him, and she felt guilty about that. But at the same time, she felt like Naruto needed to hear that, to bring him back to reality and away from his guilt of killing Sasuke. She will need to talk to him about all of this. In the room down the hall, Naruto was thinking something along the same line. He was mulling over the words said to him by Kurenai. If he was honest with himself, Kurenai nailed it with her observation of him. He was a coward and a liar. He was running away because he thought he didn't deserve his friends. He was supposed to be their hero, but he couldn't save Sasuke, so he decided to travel the world to make up for his mistakes. But it wasn't all bad. By traveling the world, he learned a lot and saw a lot. He saw that many people still suffered despite the peace that came by defeating Madara. His work wasn't finished yet. He turned around and sighed. It looks like he needs to make a lot of things right again. His friends showed him that today. Quote 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 quote. Sir, you can't enter this room, said a distraught nurse standing in front of the room where Naruto is recovering. Move, lady, yelled Kiba, but the nurse wouldn't budge. I'm sorry, but Lady Tsunade ordered me to keep everyone from entering this room unless she authorizes it. Kiba growled but stopped when he heard a voice speak from inside the room. It's okay. You can let them in. Kiba didn't have to be asked twice. He barged inside the room and got in Naruto's face, growling at him. What did you do to Kurenai? Yelled Kiba. The rest of the search team entered the room and tried to calm Kiba down. Hinata had the most success. Kiba-kun, please calm down. She gently grabbed hold of his arm and pulled him away from Naruto. Kiba growled but did as Hinata said. Kakashi took charge of the situation before Kiba loses more of his pride. What happened, Naruto? Naruto sighed and took a seat on his bed. In order to catch up with me, she took too many soldier pills and her body couldn't take it. Wait, so I didn't misplace my pills but Kurenai took them instead, said Sakura. It doesn't matter if she took the pills. It's your fault in the first place. If you didn't run away, she wouldn't go after you. I still don't know why she did that and how she knew where you were. Yelled Kiba. Naruto remained quiet and looked away from his judging gaze. He already knew all this and it was eating him up from the inside. What the hell is going on here? Yelled a very angry Tsunade. I was just on my way home when I got a message that someone disobeyed my direct orders and entered a room they shouldn't. Care to explain that? Growled Tsunade, tapping her foot in annoyance. Most of the room gulped and sweated bullets, but none more than Kiba. He was the one who started all of this. It's okay, Bakken, I let them in, answered Naruto, trying to save their. I don't care. I want everyone out of this room now, threatened Tsunade. In a second the room was empty except for Naruto and Tsunade. It looks like they hate me, huh? Can't say I blame them, smiled sadly Naruto. Tsunade sighed and shook her head. They don't hate you, Naruto. You broke their hearts by running away from them. You should know how that feels. You experienced the same thing with Sasuke, didn't you? Give it time. They will forgive you. Naruto nodded. Thanks, Bakken. I really missed you, smiled Naruto. Me too, Gaki. Me too, smiled Tsunade while walking out of the room and leaving him alone. Well, it seems you are recovering well. I see no need for you to stay in the hospital. If you want, you can continue your recovery at home, but no strenuous activities for at least a week, said Tsunade, Just finishing with Kurenai's medical examination. Kurenai nodded gratefully. That sounds lovely. When can I leave? Anytime you want. I'll take care of the discharge papers as soon as I finish with my other checkups. Answered Tsunade, filing away Kurenai's medical file. Is Naruto still in the hospital? I would like to talk to him. I was a bit harsh to him the other day and I want to apologize. Asked Kurenai. Tsunade shook her head. No, I gave him the green light this morning. He was getting restless in that room and that's never a good thing when it comes to Naruto. Smirked Tsunade. A ghost of a smile appeared on Kurenai's face. She remembered what a restless Naruto meant, trouble. I guess our talk will have to wait. Sighed Kurenai. Knowing the Gaki, he's probably gorging himself on ramen right now. Smiled Tsunade. Kurenai chuckled. I wouldn't be surprised if that turns out to be true. He may have changed but his ramen addiction is still strong. Tsunade nodded. Just go easy on the kid. He's been through a lot the past few years. He doesn't need a judge right now. What he needs are friends to stand by his side and help him. With that Tsunade said her goodbye and walked out of the room. Kurenai contemplated on her words and agreed with the woman. It wouldn't do any good if she kept reminding Naruto of his mistakes. Right now, he needs people who can show him what is truly important. She was brought of her musing by her little ball of energy, Mommy. Yelled Asuma Jr., jumping into the waiting arms of his mother. Anko was trailing closely behind, grumbling about hyperactive kids who don't know when to shut up. He's all yours, said Anko, sounding exhausted, and she probably was. Taking care of a 3-year-old isn't a walk in the park. Thanks Anko. I owe you one. Smiled Kurenai appreciatively. Yeah, remember that the next time you go past a dango stand. Smirked Anko. Kurenai laughed slightly and then returned her attention back at the boy hugging her. She ruffled his hair and asked, ready to go? I did promise you some ice cream. Smiled Kurenai motherly. Asuma's eye lit up with joy and nodded excitedly. Kurenai chuckled and put him on the floor while she went to the bathroom to change her clothes. A few minutes later she came out dressed in her normal attire which she got from Anko the day before. After that Asuma grabbed his mom's hand and his aunt's hand and led them towards his favorite ice cream stand. The trio were walking slowly towards their destination with Kurenai smiling down at her exuberant son who was humming to himself. Anko was a little bit uncomfortable with holding hands with a kid in public and quite frankly she was a bit embarrassed by the whole situation. If she saw anyone who looked at her funnily she would promptly shut them up by giving them the evil look. They arrived at the ice cream vendor and Asuma immediately voiced his choice of ice cream, vanilla and chocolate, please. Said Asuma happily. Coming right up. What about you two ladies? Asked politely the middle-aged owner. Strawberry for me, said Kurenai with a smile. Do you have a dango flavor? Asked Anko. Kurenai shook her head at her friend's addiction to ramen. The owner of the stand looked at her funnily. No sorry. Anko deflated at the news. Fine, then give me a yogurt-flavored one. The man nodded and prepared their orders. A minute later they were all happily licking their choice of ice cream. Come again, said the owner. The trio waved him goodbye and continued their walk down the street. Anko and Kurenai chatted among themselves with Kurenai telling her what happened to her the past few days and Anko listening intently to her. Meanwhile the ice cream was keeping Asuma occupied. So that's what happened. Man, you guys got your kicked by one man. Teased Anko playfully. Hey, it wasn't just any man. This is Naruto we are talking about. I wouldn't be surprised if he would be able to defeat an entire village by himself. Defended Kurenai. Still, you guys. Smirked Anko. Kurenai stuck out her tongue at her best friend. Like she could do any better. It took 14 people to just make him sweat and even then he was holding back, by a lot. When they turned a corner they came across a huge crowd people who were watching a commotion happening in the street. Asuma, the ever-curious young boy, insisted on checking out what was going on. Kurenai saw no harm in checking out what was happening. The trio made their way towards the crowd. They could pick up a few whispers among the people. They heard something like, fighting, hero, and things like that. That got their attention. They reached the edge of the crowd. Kurenai picked up her son and then proceeded to make her way through the crowd with Anko following behind her. They could make out sounds of fighting and an occasional tremor shook the earth. When they finally pushed their way through the crowd, they came across a slightly shocking and sad scene. There he was, the hero of Konoha, getting pummeled into the ground by none other than the Inuzuka heir, Kiba. Kiba was panting, but other than that he looked unharmed. Naruto, on the other hand, was looking worse for wear. His clothes were all dirty and in some places torn. There was a small line of blood flowing down his forehead, indicating that he was injured somewhere on his head. Kiba charged at his one-time comrade and delivered a punishing blow to his stomach. Naruto just stood there with an impassive look on his face and waited for the attack to hit. The punch knocked the air out of his lungs and he dropped to his knees, clutching his stomach. Kiba didn't stop there. He delivered a bone-crushing kick to Naruto's chin which sent Naruto flying into a nearby store. Naruto was lying among the rubble, seemingly unmoving. But if someone looked closely he would see a very sad look on his face. He slowly stood up and removed the rubble off him. He walked back into the street and stood in front of Kiba, awaiting the next punch or kick from him. Kiba growled at him and raised his hand to punch him once again, but he was stopped. Kurenai couldn't stand this any longer. She handed Asuma to Anko and intervened in this pointless fight. She walked between the two fighters and faced Kiba. That's enough, Kiba. What's gotten into you? Kiba calmed a bit when he saw his sensei, but he still gritted his teeth. Please, move away, Kurenai-sensei. This is between me and him. Kurenai wouldn't back down. Enough, Kiba. Fighting among comrades is inexcusable. I'm sure Hokage-sama wouldn't condone this sort of behavior. Kiba scoffed. He gave up the right to be our comrade when he lied to us and hurt you, Kurenai-sensei. Kurenai wanted to say something but was interrupted by the arrival of an Anbu team. What is going on here? Asked the leader of the unit. Kiba growled at the interruption. Nothing at all, Anbu-sama. I was just leaving. The leader turned to Naruto. Would you like to add anything, Uzumaki-sama? Naruto shook his head, his emotionless facade still on. Very well. He turned to the crowd. Everyone, disperse. The show is over. The crowd murmured between each other and moments later the street returned to normal. The leader turned back towards Kiba and Naruto. I will have to make a report about this. Expect a summon from the Hokage-sama in the next few hours. With that the Anbu unit disappeared from their sight. Kiba growled once more at Naruto but then turned around and walked away. Kurenai sighed at her student's fiery temper. He may have matured but his fiery personality didn't subside one bit. She turned around and faced Naruto, who had seen better days. He had a bloody lip and a gash on his forehead. Are you okay? Asked Kurenai in concern. I'll be fine, said Naruto dismissively. He turned around and promptly disappeared into the wind. Kurenai frowned at his emotionless response. It wasn't like Naruto to be like that. She put Naruto out of her mind and turned to her son and Anko, who were waiting patiently for her. She walked towards them and relieved Anko of Asuma. Asuma was quick to show his interest in the event. Mommy, who was that man and why was he bleeding? That was Uzumaki Naruto, a friend of your mommy. He was bleeding because he got into a fight with Kiba. But don't worry, everything is okay now, explained Kurenai. He looked sad, said Asuma, and Kurenai had to agree with her son's observation. He did look sad, more than a few days before. She sighed internally. She wasn't looking forward to that talk between them. The brat let the dog boy hit him. He didn't even make a move to defend himself. The Inuzuka brat is lucky to be still standing, said Anko with a frown. She was hoping to see the blonde Gaki in action. She heard so many wonderful things from both Kurenai and Kakashi about him, and now she wants to see if the rumors are true. He's probably thinking he deserves it, that's why he didn't fight back. It's a good thing he didn't. There's been enough fighting between friends to last me a lifetime, said Kurenai. Still, I wonder what caused this little incident, pondered Anko. I can tell you if you want, said a feminine voice from the left. The trio turned and saw the young girl who works at Naruto's favorite ramen stand, which just happens to be on the same street. Ayame, right, said Kurenai politely while walking towards her. Ayame smiled and nodded, happy that a famous person like her remembers her name. So what happened? Asked Anko bluntly. Ayame sighed and told them what happened. FLASHYYYY. Naruto was walking down the street. He was just discharged by his grandma from the hospital, and to be frank, it felt good to be out of that hellhole. Never did like the hospital. A lot of things were on his minds, mainly how to regain the friendships that he lost because of his inability to face them and tell them the truth. He knew it won't be easy and it will involve a lot of pain and tears, but he will persevere. He still hasn't seen his friends ever since that incident in the hospital. He felt it was best they stay away from each other, at least for the time being. But first things first, he wants to feed his growling stomach. Hospital food isn't exactly his choice of food. Ramen it's, thought Naruto happily. While walking down the street towards his favorite ramen stand and two of the most precious people in his life, he could see and hear people whispering among each other. They had surprised looks on their faces, probably because they were surprised. He was missing for 3 years. He could also see some happy faces, smiles directed towards him. He smiled back at them and offered them a small wave. The girls were another story altogether. Whenever he smiled friendly at a woman or a young girl, they would either blush or giggle or both. He wasn't exactly used to such behavior from women, so he didn't really know what to do. He smiled awkwardly back at them and continued on his way. He rounded a corner and spotted his favorite stand. He quickened his pace and a few seconds later he was in front of the flaps of the stand. He took a deep breath and entered. "Welcome to," said a cheery voice from the counter, but her breath hitched when she spotted someone she really didn't expect. "Naruto," said Ayame carefully, not believing her eyes. Naruto gave her a small smile and nodded. That set off a chain of events. First a loud squeal, "Naruto!" And secondly, Ayame jumped over the counter with the elegance of a seasoned shinobi. She tackled Naruto to the ground and hugged him tightly. Naruto laughed all the way and returned the gesture. "Miss me?" chuckled Naruto. Ayame laughed with him and nodded into his chest. They both stood up and Naruto dusted himself off. Naruto looked up and saw that Ayame's mood took a drastic turn, and for the worse. Her eyes darkened and the usually not dangerous weapon in her hand suddenly felt very threatening. "You have a lot of explaining to do, mister," threatened Ayame. Naruto gulped and laughed nervously while on the inside he was screaming for help. A moment later old man Tuki came from the kitchen and came upon an interesting sight. His beautiful daughter was currently in the process of beating up his favorite customer with a soup ladle. His mind didn't really process at first that his favorite customer was back after 3 years, but rather just enjoyed the moment. While the old man was currently enjoying himself, Naruto was doing everything he could to calm down his surrogate sister, but it wasn't working. "Why didn't you write to us to tell us you are okay?" demanded Ayame while swinging her ladle. "We were so worried about you and you didn't have the decency to let us know you are okay," said Ayame. She took another swing, but Naruto dodged it skillfully. If someone were to be looking into the stand, they would have thought that two siblings were in an argument. "Settle down, kids. I'm sure Naruto has a good explanation why he didn't stay in contact," said Tuki, trying to ease the tension. Ayame growled but relented in her attack. Naruto let out a breath of relief and thanked internally for the old man's intervention. He looked towards his savior and saw that he too was waiting for an explanation. Naruto sighed and told them everything. About Sasuke, his travels, his feelings, his fears, everything. Both Ayame and Tuki felt bad for him. He always has to carry such a burden on his shoulders. It's not fair. That's basically it. I'm truly sorry for not telling you I'm okay. I hope you can forgive me," said Naruto, full of remorse and his head bowed down as a sign of apology. He got his answer when the sweet scent of a freshly made bowl of ramen attacked his nostrils. He looked up and saw two smiling faces, telling him everything was okay. His face lit up in joy and he dug in with vigor. His eyes lit up when his taste buds came in contact with the ramen of gods, aka Tuki's ramen. He missed this, he missed them. Bowl after bowl, Naruto tried to make up for lost time. During his feast, the trio chatted away. They talked about his absence, what happened in Konoha, some juicy gossip and things like that. A genuine smile could be seen on Naruto's face after a long time. He was happy. His smile faded when he sensed someone approaching the stand. He knew who it was. He turned towards Ayame and Tuki and spoke in a serious tone, "Whatever happens, don't interfere. With that he stood up and walked outside and turned towards the direction where he sensed the new arrival. Both Ayame and Tuki dropped whatever it was they were currently doing and walked to the entrance and listened to the conversation between Naruto and the now identified Kiba. "Can I help you, Kiba?" said Naruto calmly. Kiba growled, his eyes full of anger and fury. "You think you can just walk back into our lives, pretending nothing happened? Hurting me I could let it slide, but hurting Hinata and Kurenai-sensei, that is inexcusable. Kurenai-sensei nearly died because of you. What do you have to say for yourself?" Naruto remained stoic, but he was beating himself up on the inside. "I'm sorry," was his only response, but a genuine one at that. Too bad it wasn't good enough for Kiba. "Sorry isn't good enough," yelled Kiba. "Then take your anger on me," proposed Naruto, spreading his arms, giving him a target to vent his anger on. Kiba clenched his fist, his rational thinking was replaced by sheer anger. Gladly, he attacked. Quote 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 quote. After that, Naruto let Kiba beat him up. Finished Ayame, sadness etched all over her face. Kurenai sighed, they aren't to blame. They both know what they did was wrong. Right now, they are hurting and aren't thinking straight. Don't worry, I'll talk to them. Ayame nodded gratefully and said her goodbye and walked back to the stand. Kurenai turned towards Anko, still up for dango. I need some downtime. I'm exhausted. Anko grinned, you kidding? Kurenai smiled and let Anko's stomach lead the way. Quote 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 quote. 2 stores destroyed, 4 stands demolished, disturbing public peace, fighting between comrades, what were you two thinking? Yelled an infuriated Tsunade. Kiba turned away from her calculating gaze, ashamed of his actions, but he still thought Naruto deserved it. Naruto meanwhile stood tall and didn't shy away from her gaze. I take full responsibility. It was me who started the fight, declared Naruto, surprising Kiba but not Tsunade. Kiba looked at him and wanted to protest to Tsunade that he started everything, but a cold look from Naruto shut him up. Tsunade sighed, if that's how it is then so be it. Naruto, you have to pay for the damage you two caused. Naruto nodded. I'm sure I don't have to tell you what will happen if this happens again, right? Said Tsunade threateningly. The both nodded, full aware that they were getting off easy. Dismissed. Naruto, stay for a moment. I need to talk to you about something, said Tsunade. Kiba bowed and made his way out of the room, but not before sneaking a glance towards Naruto. Different things were swimming inside Kiba's head. One of them was still anger, but now it was also guilt and sorrow. Despite everything, Naruto was still a good friend to him and he was an idiot to act like he did. He shook his head and left the room. As soon as Kiba left the room, Naruto visibly relaxed and his expression softened. He turned towards his last family and spoke, thanks for that. It truly wasn't his fault. He had every right to vent his anger on me. She waved him of, yeah. I just hope there won't be more of these friendly disputes. Now sit down. Naruto complied and sat down on the chair in front of her desk. Tsunade's voice turned a bit serious. The reason I had you stay here is because the council wants to speak to you. Naruto didn't seem surprised by that. I figured as much. I was gone for 3 years and I'm sure they have questions. I'm sure they have more than questions. Naruto, you were gone for 3 years without a reasonable cause. If it were anyone else they would be branded traitors and hunted down. I'm sure you know what this means. Finished Tsunade. Naruto nodded, I'm aware, Ba-chan. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Smiled Naruto. Tsunade found that his smile is still infectious. Good. The meeting starts in an hour. Until then you are free to do whatever you want. Naruto stood up. See you in an hour, Ba-chan. He waved and disappeared into the wind. Damn brat. muttered Tsunade with a smile. Quote 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 quote. Ah, was the satisfied voice coming from Anko. She just finished her 15 dumplings of her favorite dango, and the best thing about this that it was free. God, how she loves eating free dango. While Anko was satisfied, Kurenai was cursing her in her bottomless pit she calls her stomach. How can she eat so much and not explode? She'll never know. Asuma was unaware of her mother's thoughts, rather he too was content. He had one dumpling and that's all he needed. That was delicious. Thanks Kur-chan. Grinned Anko, pleased with herself for making Kurenai pay for the whole thing. She would have watched the little Gaki for free, but free dango was much better in her opinion. Kurenai took out her wallet and saddened when she saw how much of a punishment it's going to take. Don't mention it. Asuma interrupted. Mommy, can we go visit Tu-san? Kurenai offered him a small smile. Sure honey. Kurenai told Asuma Jr. all about his father a couple of months ago. Some might say that's too fast, that he is still too young to hear such things, but Kurenai thought differently. When she first told him why he has no father, he cried the whole night and Kurenai regretted telling him so soon. But the next day, she was assaulted by numerous questions about Asuma Sr., and the best of all, he looked so happy when they talked about him. Her heart warmed when he said that he wants to be just like his father, a strong ninja and a good man. Anko also had a small smile on her face, which is a very rare sight. She felt bad for the kid. She knew what it was like to have no father or mother and knew the pain was excruciating. She applauded the kid's resilience. He was strong in her eyes. Kurenai turned towards Anko. Would you like to join us, Anko? Asked Kurenai. No, I can't. I need to go back to the T&I. Ibiki has new toys for me. Maybe some other time. Grinned Anko devilishly. Kurenai laughed at Anko's sadistic behavior. At first when she talked about her work she always shuddered or paled, but now after so many years she is used to it. That's okay. Thanks again for everything Anko. I don't know what I would do without you. Smiled Kurenai gratefully. Anko waved her off. The waiter came with the bill and Kurenai paid for it like she said she would. Well then, I'll see you later Anko. Smiled Kurenai. Asuma rushed to her favorite aunt's side and looked at her with his gorgeous and irresistible puppy eyes. Anko rolled her eyes at the kid. She knew what he wanted. It was always the same. Anko looked around the dango shack and saw that nobody was looking at them. Satisfied, she dropped to Asuma's level and Asuma immediately gave her a big hug. Asuma giggled while Anko had a playful frown on her face that was bordering on a smile. Asuma has that effect on her. Now scram, said Anko playfully. Asuma laughed and ran back to his mother's side and took her hand in his. They both waved at Anko and left the restaurant. Anko stayed for a while. She was meeting someone here and then she will leave for work. Cemetery. It's been a while since I last came here, mother, father. A lot has happened, said Naruto with a small sad smile on his face. He laid down a bouquet of flowers next to their graves. A small gesture to show he misses them dearly. We won the war. Peace is finally here. I hope it lasts. He traced the names of his parents. I screwed up big time with my friends. I pushed them away and now I don't know what to do to fix my mistakes. I wish you and Ero Sennin were here to help me, said Naruto, a small tear dropping on the ground. Quote 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 quote. Hey Tu-san, I'm back and mommy is here too, said Asuma Jr. happily, Kurenai right behind him. I've been really good lately and mommy took me out for ice cream today. Smiled Asuma. Kurenai was letting Asuma speak to his father. She'll say a small prayer after he finishes. A few minutes passed and Asuma Jr. told his father what happened to him since the last time he visited. After he finished he went to stand by his mother's side. Kurenai took that as a sign that he was finished. She laid down the flowers she brought and she lit up a small candle. She closed her eyes and prayed for Asuma's soul. Meanwhile, Asuma Jr. was looking around the cemetery, being the ever-nosy kid. He spotted a few people visiting their family's grave, but no one really stood out. That is until he spotted a lone man kneeling before a grave just little to the left. It was the man's outfit that interested Asuma Jr. It screamed ninja, and that was a good enough of an excuse to do some little research. While Kurenai was still praying, Asuma trudged off towards the man who was oblivious that someone was approaching him. Asuma walked towards the man and pulled on his sleeve a couple of times. The man reacted and turned towards the young boy. Naruto turned and saw a young boy staring at him with curious eyes. Yes? Asked Naruto. Asuma rushed with the question that was bugging him. Are you a ninja? A small smile formed on Naruto's face at the young boy's excitement. It reminded him of his younger days. Yes, I am, smiled Naruto. Stars lit up in Asuma's eyes. Sugoi. My father was also a ninja and a hero too. I'm going to be just like him, said Asuma, excitement oozing off his words. Naruto chuckled. I'm sure you'll be a fine ninja, said Naruto, ruffling the kid's hair much to his displeasure. He didn't like to be treated as a kid since he's going to become the greatest ninja that has ever walked this earth. Just you wait, one day I'll become a hero just like my father, said Asuma proudly and with conviction in his eyes that really impressed Naruto. It's not every day you see such determination in a kid his age. Do you know what makes a great ninja? Asked Naruto, surprising the young Asuma with the question. He answered it like any child would, of course, to have the strongest of those flashy techniques. Naruto laughed slightly. This kid really reminded him of his younger self. Having flashy techniques is all good and well, but that is not what makes someone a great ninja. At this point Asuma was all ears. It's having the determination to never give up and to protect your friends and family with everything you got. That is what makes someone great, said Naruto. Fire welled in Asuma's eyes and he pumped his fist. I will protect my friends and my family and I will become the greatest, just you wait. Naruto smiled once more. Kid, when you are older look me up. I'll teach you a few things about being a ninja. Until then work hard and protect your friends. I'm looking forward to seeing how you grow. I will. Believe it, said Asuma excitedly, pumping his fist into the air. Naruto grinned at the catchphrase he added in the end even though it was pure coincidence. What's your name, kid? Asuma was about to respond when someone yelled. Asuma, there you are. Don't scare me like that, yelled Kurenai, running to her son's side. When she got closer she saw who her son was talking to and was surprised to see him above all people. Oh, it's you, Naruto. Naruto's smile faltered and guilt reappeared in his eyes. He stood up. Hello, Kurenai. How you've been? Not too bad. Just visiting Asuma's grave with my son, smiled Kurenai gently at her son. Naruto smiled and bent down. So your name is Asuma, huh? Uzumaki Naruto, pleasure to meet you, said Naruto, extending his hand which Asuma quickly grabbed and shook it. Sarutobi Yuhi Asuma, responded Asuma. Naruto chuckled and stood up. Fine young man you have there. Kurenai nodded and ruffled her son's hair which made Asuma pout and blush from embarrassment. Naruto chuckled at his discomfort. Kurenai turned to the two graves Naruto was visiting your parents? Asked Kurenai politely. Naruto nodded solemnly. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been here. Kurenai noticed the distraught look on his face and thought this was as good as time as any to apologize. Look, Naruto, I was harsh on you the other day. I didn't mean. She was interrupted when Naruto held out his hand. It's okay. I deserved it. You were right though, about everything. I am a failure. Kurenai interjected. No, you are not. Look, I was angry at you and at myself and I didn't really mean what I said the other day. You are definitely their son and they would be proud of you. A small smile appeared on Naruto's face. Thanks, Kurenai. Don't get too. I still think you are a coward and that won't change anytime soon, said Kurenai sternly. Naruto laughed slightly. Then I'll have to work harder to prove that I'm not, don't you think so? Kurenai smiled. There's the Naruto I know, thought Kurenai. Good luck with that, you are going to need it. Naruto grinned like in the good old days, believe it, which earned him another smile from Kurenai and admiration from Asuma. Naruto saw that his hour was almost up and decided to say farewell. It's time for me to go. It's been a pleasure, Kurenai, said Naruto with a smile. Kurenai nodded. Naruto bent down to Asuma's level. Remember what I told you. Work hard and you will be the greatest. Asuma nodded with determination. Kurenai noticed this and was a bit surprised how fast Naruto and Asuma made a connection. They've only known each other for a few minutes, but Naruto already made a huge impact on her son. She smiled gently at the two. Naruto ruffled his future apprentice's hair and stood up. With a wave he disappeared into the wind, smiling all the way. This just made his day. Asuma was all starry-eyed when he saw his new idol disappear like he was never there. He touched the space where Naruto previously stood with his hand to see if it was a magic trick, but he touched nothing but air. He rounded on his mother. Mommy, how did he do that? His voice full of excitement. Kurenai laughed. Honey, that was a ninja technique. Cool. Nodded Asuma excitedly. Can you teach me that? Came the question any kid would ask. Kurenai chuckled and shook her head. Not today. You are still too young to become a ninja. I promise when you are old enough I'll teach you anything you want. Yada. I've got 2 teachers now. I'm awesome, screamed Asuma with delight, forgetting that he is in a cemetery where people shouldn't shout. Kurenai tried to calm her son down and succeeded after a few moments. She asked him, what do you mean, 2 teachers? Who is the other one? Naruto said he will teach me once I'm older. Isn't that great, Mom? Smiled Asuma widely. Kurenai had a loving smile on her face. Yes it is, honey. Yes it is. She looked towards the direction Naruto left and smiled. Quote 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 quote. Ready, Gaki? Asked Tsunade, standing in front of the council chamber. Naruto nodded, ready for whatever comes his way. Kakashi, who was asked to participate in the meeting because he was the leader in the mission for Naruto's recovery, was standing behind him. He put a hand on his shoulder and gave Naruto an encouraging look for which Naruto was very grateful. Tsunade turned around, opened the door and walked in. Immediately all the murmurs quieted down and the counselors took their places. Tsunade took the seat that was reserved for Hokage while Kakashi was standing on her left. Naruto walked slowly to the center of the room while eyeing all the people in the room. There were some familiar faces like the clan heads and some civilian counselors, but other than that they were strangers to him. He stopped in the center of the room and waited for the meeting to start. Tsunade stood up and announced the start of the meeting. You all know why we are here, so let us skip the pleasantries. Let us begin. She sat down again and Koharu stood up. Uzumaki Naruto, we summoned you here today so that you could explain your disappearance 3 years ago. Depending on your answer we will choose a suitable punishment. The floor is yours. With that she sat down again. Naruto took a deep breath to steel himself. I'll get right down to the point. The reason I disappeared is because of personal reasons I won't reveal. All you need to know is that I traveled the world and helped whoever needed my help. We won the war and peace was achieved, but people still suffered and I had hoped to ease that suffering. That is all. Finished Naruto, making it short and to the point. Whispers spread through the room but they were quickly silenced by Tsunade. Tsunade motioned for the proceedings to continue. Homura spoke. Any particular reason why you didn't deem it important for Konoha to know of this journey of yours? Naruto turned towards the elder. As I said, the primary reason for my journey was personal and I do not wish to discuss it in a room full of strangers. You can try and force me but it won't do any good. I know what I did was wrong and against Konoha rules and I'm willing to accept any punishment you deem suitable. It seems that is as much as we are going to get out of you. Very well. Let's move on to the next charge, attacking Konoha shinobi. We read Kakashi's report where it said that you engaged in a fight with our shinobi. As you know, that is considered an act of treason and it is punishable by life in prison or death. What do you have to say for yourself? Asked Koharu. Tsunade was a bit nervous at this point. Naruto was about to speak when Kakashi raised his hand, motioning to speak. May I? Asked Kakashi seriously. Tsunade nodded and Kakashi continued, I think this particular information should be brought to light before any judgment is made. The only reason Naruto attacked us is because we attacked him first. He had no intention of fighting us or hurting us for that matter. Throughout the fight he only defended and attacked to stun and not kill. If he wanted to he could have killed us all in a matter of minutes but he didn't. So we shouldn't treat him as a criminal rather as a misunderstood shinobi of Konoha. Said Kakashi, defending Naruto, which earned him some points with Naruto and Tsunade. That is all good and well, but the fact that he fought and injured several Konoha shinobi still remains. He could have surrendered and returned to Konoha peacefully but he chose to fight. Now, do you have anything to say for yourself, Uzumaki-sama? Said Koharu. I don't. Everything you said is true. I did fight and injure several Konoha shinobis, all of them are also my friends. I have no excuse for that. Do what you want with me. Finished Naruto. Koharu nodded and looked towards Tsunade, who also nodded at her, although a bit reluctantly. In light of everything, the punishment of death is out of the question. You may have broken several of